if you don't enjoy doing puzzles,
Yeah.
then you won't really love being an entrepreneur.
Life is an endless stream of challenges, but no worries. Manuj is bringing the world's best minds right here for you.
My gosh, Manuj, you just blew my mind.
Thank you, universe. Manuj, thank you.
I'm so grateful.
It makes me feel a bit better.
Thank you.
Bootstrapping your dreams is here to give you what you need to succeed.
Hello and welcome to this new episode of Bootstrapping Your Dreams Show. I'm your host, Manuj Aggarwal, and today we have a very special guest, Kara Goldin. So Kara is the founder and CEO of Isnt Inc., which is best known for its award-winning Isnt water. Kara is skilled in entrepreneurship, brand management, sales, e-commerce, marketing, leadership, and public speaking. Kara has been involved in sales department for leading companies like CNN and Time Magazine. Kara has been named one of the InStyle's Badass 50 Fast Company's most creative people in business, Fortune's most powerful women entrepreneurs, Fortune's most innovative women in food and drink, and EY Entrepreneur of the Year for Northern California. The Huffington Post listed Kara as one of the 6 disruptors in business, alongside, listen to this, Steve Jobs and Mark Zuckerberg. Kara has successfully navigated the world of large companies and startups in many industries, including media, tech, and consumer products. In addition, she understands retail and direct-to-consumer market as well. She's an active speaker and writer and hosts the podcast, The Kara Goldin Show, where she interviews founders, entrepreneurs, and other disruptors across various industries. Kara's first book, Undaunted, Overcoming Doubts and Doubters, published by Harper Leadership, was released in October 2020 and is now WSJ and Amazon bestseller. So glad to have you, Kara, with us.
Thank you. Very excited to be here.
Awesome. So you've had a very successful career, and you've done some amazing things. Help us. How did it all come about? Maybe walk us down the memory lane. How did it all get started? I'm sure you had your shares of ups and downs, but let's start at the beginning and then we'll unfold the story as we go.
Sure. Well, I thank you for the nice introduction. So I started my career actually in New York City in media, and I was at a magazine called Time Magazine, and I actually write about it in my book that I wanted to work for Fortune magazine, but they wouldn't hire me. So that was probably my first big hit where I thought, why won't they hire me? I mean, I'm a great writer. At least I thought I was at age 21, and I was very interested in finance, and I would love to work for them, but they weren't hiring people unless you had experience. So I ended up getting a role at Time Magazine, not in editorial, but actually in circulation, which as I look at today and many others look at as kind of really the backbone to direct to consumer businesses and subscriptions. And that was really where I was trained in sort of that first role. I left Time after a few years, was recruited out to a late stage startup called CNN. And I was there at a time when, Ted Turner was still running around the office. He was bouncing between Atlanta and New York. And, he was definitely my first kind of experience with a visionary entrepreneur, that there were plenty of people who thought that he wouldn't be able to do what he was setting out to do, that he wanted 24-hour news. He wanted it across the world. And, he was lucky at this point to have it in 50% of the households because most people didn't have cable. So watching somebody who I believed in, but I also thought, there's a chance that it's not really going to play out the way that he wants it to. I watched him build the brand, put stakes in the ground, and he never floundered. I mean, he was always very consistent about his messaging and what he believed. And, it was such a pleasure to even see him and hear him talk in the kitchen, because you think like he is a little crazy, but he definitely he believes and I believe because he believes. I got to spend more time with this person. Anyway, it was when the Gulf War rolled around. I mean, that was really, when Iraq learned that they were being bombed, frankly,
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
they turned on CNN, and that
Yeah.
was really the hockey stick for
Mhm,
CNN, and
mhm.
I was there during that time. So I was there for a few more years, and then I decided to move to Silicon Valley,
Yeah.
and was engaged. My husband was had just graduated from law school and wanted to do technology law. So
I
we
see.
moved out to Silicon Valley. The only person that I thought of when I thought about Silicon Valley was Steve Jobs. And I
Mhm.
had in college a computer, one of the first Macintosh computers.
Yeah.
And I was fascinated by how small it was, a little bigger than they are today, but
Yeah.
also just that it was aesthetically interesting. It was whoever designed this machine, it was simpler than the rest of the computers out there. So I
Mm.
thought, how do I get a job at Apple?
Yeah.
And I couldn't figure that out. But instead, in my research, I saw that there was this little company that was doing CD-ROM shopping that
Uh-huh.
had spun out of Apple that was halfway between Silicon Valley and San Francisco, where I was living.
I see.
So I picked up the phone and cold called one of the people that was quoted in this Wall Street Journal article. And I said, I think I probably hoped it was going to be Steve Jobs
Yeah.
on the phone,
Yeah.
but it wasn't. And
Yeah.
instead I said, hey, I'm really interested. I know that there's this whole idea of broadband and, dial-up services are out there. And, more than anything, I love the idea that graphics could be put onto a disc, and
Yeah.
then and then basically you're telling consumers to insert it into the machine, which was a
Yeah.
little known Steve Jobs idea.
Uh,
And I thought, I get it. I'd love to just grab coffee with you. I'm not really looking for a job, but it'd be
yeah.
great to do that. So I go for coffee, and suddenly I have a job offer. And my job
Mhm.
offer was, to go out to catalogers and retailers. And I remember thinking, what in the world am I going to do
Mhm.
while I'm here, right? I mean,
Yeah.
it's crazy. I don't have any experience in tech or the
Yeah. Yeah.
technology. I'm not
Yeah.
an engineer, but what the heck? I mean,
Yeah.
what's the worst that could happen? They'll
Yeah.
fire
Yeah.
me
Yeah.
and see what happens. So
Mhm.
instead, I took on this role, and it was a business development sales role. And my job was to cold call J. Crew and the Gap and
Yeah.
LL Bean and all kinds of retailers, and help really build out this kind of online mall. Well,
Mm.
one of our investors, America Online, invested in To Market, was
I
the name of
see.
the
Yeah.
company,
Yeah. Yeah.
alongside Apple. And then they acquired us when we needed more money.
Yeah.
And part of the acquisition was to build out exactly what we had done on the CD-ROM on America Online. And they
Nice.
invited me to come and run their partnerships, the
I
retail
see. Yeah.
partnerships for
Yeah.
this online. So there was a small period of time where I was running the disc as well as the online partnerships.
Yeah.
And the idea was that we could offer retailers this two different platforms while broadband was catching up and all the different technology was catching up. I think more than anything, what I learned during that time was watching people like Ted Turner, watching people either working directly or indirectly for people like Steve Jobs, then Steve Case, incredible entrepreneurs who there was a chance none of this was going to happen.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
and they were having fun, and they were learning along the way, and they made mistakes and they made failures. And I loved all of those experiences because I thought, it's risky maybe to some, but I'm
Yeah.
enjoying it. Every
Yeah.
day we're building, and we're continuing to go on. Well, at the end of 7 years at America Online, that's when it was $1 billion in revenue.
Mhm.
Many stories from working with retailers, including working with Jeff Bezos, where
Mm,
I
nice.
was helping build a bookshelf up in Seattle with him because he wouldn't meet with me unless
I
he
see.
unless I took the time to at his time, basically at
Uh-huh.
5:30 in the afternoon, to do that. So many amazing stories along the way. But
Mhm.
basically, it was $1 billion in revenue after 7 years, and I decided to take a little time off. And it was at that moment when I didn't plan on launching my own company and certainly not launching a beverage company. I really thought that I was probably going to do something else in tech. But it was when I looked at my own life and what I really cared about, and really kind of the puzzle that I was trying to solve in my own life around my own health. And I was trying to lose weight. I was trying to clear up my skin that had developed terrible acne and my energy levels. And I thought, I never used to be like this. Why am I like this now? And when I started looking at everything that I was eating and drinking, I finally stumbled upon my diet soda, my Diet Coke in particular. And I thought, if I can just do this little test to swap it out for plain water, maybe it will make a difference. And it made a huge difference. In 2.5 weeks, I not only got my energy back and cleared up my skin, but I lost 24 pounds.
Wow.
In 2.5 weeks.
Holy cow.
Just by getting off of diet sweeteners.
Yeah.
And the last thing I'll say on this, and then I'll stop talking for everybody, but the last thing I'll say is that the idea of stumbling onto something that I didn't really expect to stumble on, my curiosity was piqued. And I thought, why is it just by giving up diet sweeteners, am I able to get healthy, when there's a whole industry out there that has been telling me that if I drink diet and low fat and vitamin and all the rest, that I'm going to be healthier? Isn't that the opposite of what really happens? And so I became really interested in this. The only problem was that plain water for me was boring. It was something, it was a chore to drink it. So I started slicing up fruit and throwing it in the water.
I see.
And then I would share with people about this, what I had created, because people were noticing that I had lost this weight, my skin had cleared up, and I would share my story. And they'd say, that's incredible. Can you make some for me? Oh, yeah. And then I thought, while I'm taking a hiatus from tech, maybe I'll go get a product on the shelf at Whole Foods. I mean, how hard could it be? I never thought about taking on the soda industry, taking on Big Sugar, all the things that I'm known for today. I never really thought about that. Instead, I just thought, I'm going to try. I'm going to go get it on the shelf, and it kind of be a kick if it actually worked, if someone else bought it, but more importantly, if I was helping people. And that's how I really thought about it. It would make me feel good to know that I was helping people with something that is as important as health. And I think having my own experience, having my own challenges, that was the thing that I was most passionate about. And it's a lot of what I talk about in the book as well, that while I thought it would work against me to actually come from tech and not having been in the beverage industry, what I realized was actually a lot of the skills that I had developed, combined with my own passion and my own curiosity and interest in health and the change, was exactly what was needed to go in and disrupt an industry. And I not only was developing a new product, but also developed an entirely new category in the beverage industry, which hadn't been developed, called unsweetened flavored water. So that is the story.
That's awesome. That's great. You are listening to Bootstrapping Your Dreams Show with Manuj Aggarwal. Businesses face numerous challenges like finding the right product market fit, determining the market size, implementing a winning go-to-market strategy, crafting customer-centric USP, competitive analysis, looking for funding, building up cash flow and profitability. We have made a lot of free resources available to the entrepreneurial community, including this podcast. We invite you to check out our websites and follow us on social channels. The links are in the show notes. We hope you find the resources useful and utilize them to grow your business. We also have some programs for entrepreneurs. If you find our content useful, then you will definitely find the programs outstanding. So do check them out. I mean, to summarize it, it seems like, a few things that jumped out for me in this story is, first of all, your willingness to go with the flow. When you applied at Fortune magazine, and you got in CNN, and not in writing, in another department, but just how you basically capitalized on that, learned from that. And then your curiosity, as you said, like, just trying to absorb wherever you're going, and sort of learning from those experiences and putting them in your journey. And lastly, the more people, the more successful entrepreneurs I talk to in my own journey, I find that same common thread. Like, there is something that happens in their life which sort of gives them the passion to keep pushing forward. Because, as you said, it's not easy at all. I mean, once you reach a certain stage, people just look at the tip of the iceberg, but they fail to see the all the struggles and the failures behind the scenes. But if that passion was not fueling it, it's very easy to give up, isn't it?
Yeah, I describe the journey of an entrepreneur like this, and I know you're a serial entrepreneur, so let me see if this resonates with you. But it's like, if you don't enjoy doing puzzles,
Yeah.
then you won't really love being an entrepreneur.
Exactly.
Maybe you don't get a chance to do puzzles very often, but it is a good gauge for me whether or not you allow yourself to do, and I should say, a new puzzle that you've never done. And by the way, no one's given you the picture. So
That's
you have
right.
no idea
Yeah.
what's in front of you, but you think, I'm going to go try. And then along the way in your journey, somebody walks up and they take a handful of the puzzle pieces, and you're like, wait, what? Where are you going? It's not that it isn't, you can't do that. I'm right in the middle of this. Everything's going great. Everything's wonderful. I'm not going to be able to finish the puzzle if you don't give them back, but they never do. And they just walk away. And then you just say, okay. And then you just keep trying and thinking, okay, what else can I do along the way to finish this puzzle? Then you find out that those puzzle pieces, you didn't even need them, right? They left. You were very upset about them, but you kept going and you kept figuring it out. And then along the way, you find out that those puzzle pieces end up coming back. And then you're like, awesome. They ended up coming back because I was able to finish the rest of the puzzle. Now they're coming back. Now I see the full picture. And so things like that, I think, are the mindset, no matter what industry you're in. And if you need the picture to solve a puzzle, if you can't handle the fact that someone is going to come in and take things from you, and you just continue to figure out how to move on, then being an entrepreneur isn't for you. And part of the reason why I wrote my book as well was really to, share this idea with people. I think that the glamour of being an entrepreneur is often overstated. I always say to people, there's way easier ways to make money. I'm sure you'll agree. And there's, you can't, it's not a 9-to-5 job.
No.
It's, when, even as you're building along the way, if you don't really understand every single role in this company that you're working in, that you've built, then somebody can leave, and you have to be able to do that job, right? I mean, that's what happens along the way. And you have to make payroll. There's a lot of things that you have to be able to do along the way. And I think that the idea of, I guess, my background in working for other entrepreneurs, I never really, you get a renewed interest and appreciation for other entrepreneurs when you set out to go and do it. I also tell people, there's a chance always in an entrepreneur's head that you could fail. There's always that doubt. But the worst thing they can do is surround themselves with doubters that are going to feed into that. Because the most important thing for an entrepreneur to be able to do is to knock down the walls in front of them, figure out how to go around the wall, constantly innovating in order to get through something. A lot of people talk about hustle and about never stopping. I think it's okay actually to slow down sometimes, to stop and think. You talked about, having a situation in front of you where you don't exactly know what to do. I mean, I think that the best entrepreneurs are able to kind of look at what's in front of them and the fork in the road and make decisions,
Yeah, yeah,
right? And also know that they can go one way and they're hopeful that that way is going to work, but they also know that they can't make the same mistake twice. So they're gonna turn around and maybe go the other way, even if it'll take them a little bit longer to assess the situation. And that is the most important thing, I think, in not only, building a new company and being an entrepreneur, but also building something totally new, like a new category.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I mean, so many things resonate in that what you said. Like the puzzle piece is the greatest example, and the funny thing is, it's not even Rubik's cube. It's like a multi-dimensional puzzle which changes every day. I mean, the economy, the people's perceptions, the preferences changes every. So it's not like you solve the puzzle one day and it's like, okay, I'm done now. It just keeps going and going and going, and the way you said it, like the fork in the road. Sometimes you really have to test it, and you need people who are flexible enough to go along with that, because because people who are not flexible enough, it will drive them nuts, because every day you tell them something, hey, we're going to try this, and they're like, hey, what happened to that? Yesterday we were talking about that. Like, no, okay, forget about that, let's try this. So it's a very a dynamic environment like that. And I think the way I look at it is it's almost like a discovery of yourself, a self discovery, in the sense, okay, what are you made of, what are you capable of, right?
Absolutely. And I even, think too that these challenges along the way and these failures along the way, they build resilience, right? They build, and it's important to look back on those times. And I still have those times today when, I've had many challenging moments, but I'll have challenges that maybe I didn't expect. The pandemic, for example, when we're an FDA regulated company that is, that we've always known we were an essential product, but there are regulations in the US around being an essential product and your responsibility to actually stock shelves and, have enough supplies for stores, for consumers to be able to access. And so people said to me, you seem very calm in this process. And I think I joked one day and said, when you've been through the 2008, 2009 financial crisis, when you've almost had your company shut down, when you have had to, go and deliver your fourth child on your way to get your product on the shelf at Whole
My
Foods. I mean,
goodness.
you just sort of roll with it, right? And
Yeah.
you learn that it's important to think about those times, and maybe you didn't think that it was all going to work out, but then it did, right? Maybe it turned out a little bit different way than you had
That's right.
thought.
That's right.
And so more importantly, I think even shows like this are ones where it helps people to know, and especially the people who are going through dark moments that are really challenging. If you're
Absolutely.
not, and you've never been through those times, some of the stuff that we talk about here or we talk about on my podcast don't make sense to people until you've been through it. But the people that are going through really, really challenging times, that's where it's like misery is company, as the saying goes. It's to be able to hear those stories that people had moments that were really dark when they didn't know how they were going to get through, but then this happened. And then this happened. That's what people need to know in order to know that they can go on. So it's a really, really important piece of it.
Yeah, I think challenges are everywhere. A lot of people hide those challenges. They don't talk about it. It sort of they have a perception. It makes them look weak or something like that. But I think challenges are what make us sort of go further. And that power of belief in ourselves is what sort of leads other people to come at the right moment. They show up. The resources show up if you just believe that this is going to work. Before I go further, I really want to thank you, because you sent us a huge package of water and all the goodies. And I have a 9-year-old son. He just absolutely loved the water. Like
Oh,
for for an entire, I think 2 weeks, that's all he drank. Like he goes, nobody else can drink it. I'm the only one who's gonna drink it. So that
oh,
was
I
great.
love
Thank
it.
you so much.
Of
Um,
course.
yeah, and so now let's move on to your book, which is sort of the theme, Undaunted. What made you write it? And I'm sure like it is all about what we talked about already, but tell us what prompted that, and what are some of the some of the key things that people can take away from that book.
Yeah, I think the main key thing, so it really is my journey, and it's from starting. I grew up in Arizona.
Mhm,
Had these dreams of being a writer,
mhm,
and I didn't even have a dream of being in tech until I
mhm,
just
mhm,
got in it, and I found what I was interested in, and
mhm.
and so actually making the moves to start somewhere, I think, is a really, really
Yeah,
important
yeah,
lesson in this book. One of my chapters is called Build the Airplane as You're Flying It.
yeah, yeah,
And, I talk all the time that it's, the lessons I've learned in not only my company, but in other companies that I've worked for, is that you don't always have the roadmap. And you spoke about, the support that you get inside of your company. If you don't have people that are a little bit bendable, maybe
yeah,
they've
yeah,
I used to think, because this was my first startup that I had
yeah,
started, I used to think that I've got to go and hire lots of people from Coke and Pepsi to come into my company. Not having experience, they joined the company, but then those people were not the right people because they were
mhm,
used to following orders, right?
mhm,
They were
mhm,
used to
mhm.
thinking that this is the way you do it,
Yeah, yeah,
versus actually saying, could we do it this way? They'd say
yeah, yeah,
no. And
yeah,
I'd say, why?
yeah,
And then they didn't have the answers because
uh,
no one had gone through that
yeah,
process. And so
yeah,
you need people who are curious. You need
yeah,
people who are willing to fail. You need people who are excited and passionate about your product, but
mhm,
also excited and passionate about you and believe that
mhm,
you are going to do this, but also are willing to test things along the way. And those are the stories that I tell in the book too, not only my own experience, but also finding the right people, be recognizing that, even if in our case, when we had one of the stories in the book is getting kicked out of Starbucks, and we
mhm,
were in Starbucks and almost 7,000 stores in the across the US. And as we were that was a very exciting day when we got in there. We were surpassing our goals in Starbucks, but when they got a new buyer and they started having strategic discussions internally at Starbucks, they decided they wanted to offer food in
mm,
their cases. They didn't have food prior to us being in there. They had a couple of cookies, but they didn't have any
mhm,
sandwiches.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
And so when I got the news that they were going to pull us out of the case, that was a bad day. I thought, you
mhm,
can't do this. We've been meeting all of the expectations, but they had expectations for their business too. And so it's a
yeah,
story about learning. Don't put all your eggs in one basket. Things
mhm,
can
mhm.
happen when people change strategies that are better for
Absolutely,
them.
absolutely,
And also become aware of, you can't stop. You
yeah,
need to figure out, what else can I be doing? And that's when uh, we got an email about 2 weeks after the Starbucks situation from Amazon. Amazon was
mhm,
just starting their grocery business and
nice,
they hadn't launched beverages online. And the buyer from Amazon said to me, I buy your product every morning at Starbucks.
nice,
Now,
nice.
I didn't know if I should share with him that we had just been
No.
eliminated from
Yeah,
Starbucks or not.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
I just said, "Oh, that's terrific." And I'm
yeah.
thinking, "Oh, what if he finds out?" But in the
Yeah.
meantime, I said, "I have a lot of extra product that we can
Mhm.
ship out to you right now. Like this minute, I can ship it
Yeah.
out to you." And he said, "Oh, that's great. I'll wire you the money right now. That's terrific
Nice, nice.
because we really want to get this launched."
Mhm.
So again, understanding that if you are open to other possibilities along the way. We didn't have online direct to consumer in our plan. Today, during the pandemic, that business tripled for us. Almost 50% of our business is direct to consumer. And having that relationship with the consumer versus going through a store for 100% of your distribution is not only important for you to have that consumer relationship during normal times, but during a pandemic, when things are out of control in terms of, you know, where this virus sits, if stores are closing down, the safest way to get products to consumers, et cetera. So lots of lessons in the book about that.
That's great. That's great. Now, I know we are running out of time, but there's one question I have is, the other part of the title is doubters and doubt and doubters. And you also talk about fearless risk takers. Entrepreneurs are fearless risk takers. At the same time, you also say, you have been through times where things didn't look as good, and fear sets in, anxiety sets in. So these are two different dimensions. So how do you reconcile them? How do you overcome these fears and then keep on taking these risks?
Well, it's so the name of the book is Undaunted: Overcoming Doubts and Doubters. And I think there's always been this idea out there about entrepreneurs that they are fearless risk takers, that they don't have doubts, and then they'll just go and do whatever because they know they'll be successful. And I've always shared with people that I actually think that most entrepreneurs actually do have doubts and they do have fears, but the fun of going and trying, the adrenaline of going out into a world that hasn't been tackled before is consistent with what I've seen in so many entrepreneurs. It's not that they don't think that they're going to fail, or there's a tiny little bit of doubt sitting in their head, but instead it's figuring out, what if it could actually happen? Wouldn't that be amazing? I mean, think about Steve Jobs and how many people thought he was crazy when he was putting this computer together and sticking a little apple on it. I mean, it's just crazy, right? And I just think, like, thinking about those people and knowing their stories, and ones that I've been very fascinated with for so many years, are the things that have allowed me to know I could go do it. And I think probably the most surprising thing for me, if you don't mind me say, about my book that has been, I knew it would be great for beverage entrepreneurs or people in the food space, or maybe even female entrepreneurs, or maybe even, mothers who wanted to go and launch a company. But the most fascinating thing for me about this book, for the feedback that I've gotten on the book, is that there are so many executives that have hit C-suite who have read the book, who have said to me, I'm questioning why I haven't gone out and done my own thing.
Nice.
I've made enough money. I'm not very challenged. I'm not learning along the way. Why can't I go and take a chance? And they come to their own conclusion about the fear that they have, the fear of failure for people. And the higher you get in an organization, when you've never really failed, it's a big one, right? Where you think to yourself, I don't want to look stupid. Why would I want to go and do that? Yet the intrigue of it, the excitement of doing something, in the case of Hint, doing something that actually betters people's health, where you feel that it's actually helping people to drink water and get healthier. I mean, that's a powerful pull for me. So I wanted to be able to share that story with people. And also, just the one last thing on that too, the concern of even my publisher when this was first out there was that, it's a female, is it going to be too focused on female entrepreneurism, which of course is a big topic worldwide. But the number of men who have reached out to me, touching on the topic that you talked about in the beginning, about about not, you know, not having it all figured out, and therefore they, or maybe they've had failures in the past and they don't talk about those things.
Yeah.
I think it's a big conversation, that owning your own hard times and your own challenges, it doesn't mean that you can't do something better going
Yeah.
forward. In fact, those are the people that we all root for,
Yeah.
right? That have
Exactly.
had challenges and failures, and therefore they've learned from their own experience. So it's an exciting, the book launched last October. It's still going very strong, and very, very exciting. Thank you for having me on too.
No,
And
thanks a
hopefully,
lot. This has been an amazing conversation. Yeah, I mean, learning from success stories like yourself and going behind the scenes is what this show is all about. And I think, as you said, this is what inspires other people, because role models are the key thing, which keep us going. We can look at these stories and use them as templates for our own lives.
absolutely. And I think it's important. And to your point, it's not just about business. It's about all this stuff goes hand in hand with how you think about your personal life and what you can do, and waking up with saying yes to a lot of things versus actually saying, oh, I'm not qualified to do that. I don't think I could accomplish that. Instead, just go out and try. And the amount of appreciation you have for yourself and the growth that you have for yourself just by going and trying and seeing what you can accomplish is usually much better, and a better feeling, not only for
Absolutely.
you, but also for your family, your business, and happier people, because you're learning along the way.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for being with us. Now, before I let you go, can you tell us if people want to reach out to you, how can they do that?
Sure, all over social media platforms, where we met actually
Yeah.
on at Kara Goldin with an
Mhm.
I,
Mhm.
and absolutely, I would love to hear from you. Hopefully, you'll get a chance to order the book. It's available worldwide. It's also on Audible. It would be terrific to see to hear more from people.
Absolutely. We'll put those links in the show notes so that people can reach out easily.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thanks.
Hey, I'm Sarah, producer of the Bootstrapping Your Dreams show. This episode has come to an end. Don't forget to check out the episode show notes for the links to the resources mentioned in this episode. Thanks for tuning in. Until the next episode, goodbye. Keep going and keep winning.